Number 10. Back in 1985, Sports Illustrated writer George Plimpton wrote a story about an amazing English pitching prospect that was going to blow all Major League Baseball teams out of the water and put the New York Mets on top. The guy's name was Sid Finch, and he was said to be able to throw a fastball at 168 miles per hour with pinpoint accuracy. His powerful arm created such a commotion, the other teams started complaining to Major League Baseball officials, fearing for their players' safety. But everyone should have checked out the date of the Sports Illustrated issue. It was published on April Fool's Day, and unfortunately for the Mets and their fans, Mr. Finch was as real as the Tooth Fairy. Number 9. Sports Illustrated poked fun at its readers again in 2002 when writer John Wertheim created Simonya Popova, a 17-year-old rising tennis star from Uzbekistan, who was as real as a pink unicorn. The magazine created a portrait of Popova using computer-generated images, and Wertheim's article fooled everyone. When people started finding out, the reporter said it was meant in good fun, playful, and hopefully creative. It was not meant as some grand hoax. However, Women's Tennis Association spokesman Chris DiMaria didn't find it funny at all. He was quoted as saying, "It was misleading and irritating. There are a lot of great stories out there. We didn't need a fake one." Oh, come on, man. Laugh a little. Number 8. On a really foggy day in 1990, the races at Delta Downs in Louisiana were almost impossible to see. So much so that jockey Sylvester Carmouche thought, hey, why not just wait for everyone to come back around the track and just start racing then? So the race began, and Carmouche waited for his opponents to come back around before he whipped his horse to the finish line to win the race. Well, his victory didn't last long, because apparently race officials got complaints about the result and quickly realized Carmouche had cheated. He was banned from racing in the state for 10 years. Number 7. During the 1976 Montreal Summer Olympics, Soviet fencer Boris Onishenko was said to be one of the favorites to win a medal. Unfortunately for him, his notoriety came in a very different way. During the pentathlon event, he had the heavy task of helping the Soviet team rise from its 4th place standing leading up to the event. In the beginning of the competition, he seemed to be doing really great, that is, until the British team captain exposed him as a cheat. It seems Onishenko's épée had been electronically modified to allow him to score points at will. He did finish the competition with a regular épée and still won by a large margin, but because of his cheating, he was disqualified and shamed. Number 6. Danny Almonte was thought to be the best 12-year-old pitcher in the world. No doubt he worked hard, had great genes, great coaches, and a little bit of luck, except he also had a fake birth certificate and was actually 14 years old, which explains why he was stronger and better coordinated. When the lie was discovered, the hoax cost the team their Little League World Series title, and the poor kid, led by greedy, misguided adults, gained a notoriety that he most likely would have liked to pass on. Number 5. Golf is known to be a gentleman's game that relies on players' honesty. Of course, in huge tournaments, there are plenty of judges out on the greens, but during some qualifying rounds for the 1985 Open, David Robertson made the most of the fact that the links weren't as severely monitored, and cheated by moving his ball much closer to the hole multiple times. When people did catch on, he was busted and banned from the PGA European Tour for 20 years. Number 4. Sure, the 1936 Berlin Olympics are best remembered for Jesse Owens showing up Adolf Hitler by winning a gold medal, but a 4th place finisher in the high jump competition actually pulled off the biggest scam of the games. Dora Ratjen was actually Hermann Ratjen, who had been forced to compete in the Olympics as a woman by Nazi officials. Forcing a guy to pretend to be a woman? Crazy, considering how the regime treated gays and transgenders back then. Anyway, the truth came out 2 years later when Ratjen set a world record at the 1938 European Athletic Championship. Number 3. These two marathon runners aren't related and never knew each other, but they do have something in common. They both won marathons by cheating. Lorz took home the gold medal in the 1904 Olympics, while Ruiz won the 1980 Boston Marathon, both with spectacularly short finish times. In Lorz's case, he was said to have skipped most of the race, hitching a ride for the last 11 miles. As for Ruiz, nobody really knows exactly how she got across the finish line, but everyone agrees she didn't run the full circuit. Later on, some people were reported as saying they had seen her taking the subway to finish the 1979 New York Marathon. So yeah, she probably did something like that in Boston too. As for Lorz, he did get some redemption the following year when he went on to win the 1905 Boston Marathon, legitimately. Number 2. Donald Crowhurst was an inexperienced British sailor who decided to register for the Sunday Times Golden Globe race. He was hoping to win a big amount of prize money, but quickly found himself in deep trouble early on in the race. Instead of plugging on, he secretly abandoned the race, but kept giving false positions so that the authorities would think he was actually in the lead. Crowhurst stopped off in South America for a while, waiting for his opponents to come back around, thinking he'd rejoin the race at that point. Problem is, when he did rejoin the race a month later, his actions prompted another competitor to push his boat too hard, forcing him to abandon ship. So, although Crowhurst's victory seemed certain, he quickly realized he'd be found out if he did win. It's believed that, fearing public shame and feeling terribly guilty, Crowhurst jumped overboard around July 1st, 1969, preferring to take his own life rather than face the music. When his ship was found, on July 10th, there was no one in sight, and the boat didn't seem to have been involved in any major accident. Number 1. In terms of hoaxes, the Spanish Paralympic basketball team certainly takes the cake. We're not talking about the wheelchair-bound basketball teams, but the mentally challenged players. While competing in the Summer Games in Sydney, Australia in 2000, the squad just blew everyone out of the water, including the Russians in the final. Unfortunately, it was later discovered that the Spanish team was made up of at least 10 players who were not mentally handicapped. It was all a twisted, greedy plan to steal the gold medal, up until 2013, when the former head of the Spanish Federation for Mentally Handicapped Sports was finally found guilty of fraud 13 years after the fact. Although the team had already been forced to give their medals back a long time ago, the guilty former director was ordered to pay nearly £150,000 in fees. That's over $160,000 in US currency. Heavy price to pay.